Just wanted to start by saying thanks for hanging out with us in Alaska. That was a really amazing experience for all of us, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
We are always in joy.
I noticed.
And our greatest pleasure is when you are joining us. But whether you have a good time or not, we do not let it dampen our party.
I noticed that too.
Which makes us really nice to be with, because we do not hold you responsible for our joy. Our joy is indisputable.
And we appreciate that.
You should.
We do.
You should appreciate it. Because the fact that we don't waver in our joy always gives you that guiding light to reach for.
It is a great example. And I think that's why we keep coming back, even though the message is basically the same every time.
Cut him off.
I'm a lawyer. I have a really good job. I make a lot of money, or enough money. I have no worries about that. But what I really want is to own my own business at some point. I don't know what that business is. I know I want it to be in something that I really like, that I'm passionate about. And I guess
All right, so before you go further, we want to give you an assessment of what we just felt from you.
Okay.
So you talked about where you are, your action world, and it felt just fine to us. In other words, we didn't feel resistance within it. You were just sort of talking about where it is, and then you were talking about what you're really wanting, and that all felt fine too. So
it does feel very good.
What we feel from you is that you are in the perfect situation where you are satisfied with what is and eager for more. In other words, we don't feel any resistance that needs to be turned around, and so?
I don't think I have any. And I guess the question is, thinking back to how I got to where I am, I had to take certain actions to get there. Like, for instance, I had to take the LSAT. I had to apply to law school. I did those all. They all felt really good when I did them. And so I guess my question is, going forward, do I just relax, and will the opportunities present themselves, and I will feel when I should, I don't know what the idea is. I know what my passions are. I don't know what the idea is of the business I want to do. Or, it may be 5 businesses, and the one, there may be one and then another and another. And I'm excited about that whole process. I guess the question is, for that and for everything else, do you just calm down and relax and when the opportunities present itself, is it that you feel good and you know that that's the right thing to do? Or do you have to take any kind of proactive action, even out of joy, not out of resistance, out of, joyous thinking, investigating different ideas or doing research and things like that?
Well, you're answering your own question as you go along here, because you can feel that when you feel an impulse to move towards something, that it's the right idea. But the thing that we want to come back and touch on something just briefly here is, so let's say that you're standing in a place where you have an idea that you think that might be a good action to take. And so you just contemplate taking the action. You just imagine taking it. And in your imagery, if it feels free-flowing and exhilarating to you, then that's an indication that it is going with the flow. But if it feels uncomfortable to you, then that's an indication that there's some resistance. Now, here's a question that we want to put back to you. Does a feeling of resistance about a certain action, you're following that, does that mean it's the wrong action?
No, not necessarily, because I might get contrast from that, which will lead me to knowing more of what I want.
That is always true. But even more than that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the wrong action. It always means, you're going to really like this, that I haven't done enough energy alignment to make it feel right. In other words, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It means I'm trying to get too much leverage out of my action. How about that? It just means I'm trying to get too much leverage out of my action. Why not pre-pave it with more thought? Jerry can crawl under that car and take a hammer. We're not kidding you. And a screwdriver, and he can hammer that drive shaft disconnect back into alignment. How much more graphic can it be? The car won't reconnect. It's out of alignment. And he can crawl under the car forever and hammer it into place. And as that continues to be the only thing they think about it, then it continues to be their experience. But as you look down the road and line up your energy about it, now it will come into place. Now, here's the next thing we want to say. It will come into natural alignment. How do you feel about things just fixing themselves?
I feel good about it. My whole life has been like that.
So you don't feel any need to hammer anything into place or to justify the good that comes through hard work. In other words, you are perfectly at one with the universe just yielding to you all of the wonderful things that you deserve.
Pretty much, yeah. I think
Okay.
I always felt that way, but I think since I've been coming to these sessions and reading and thinking about it, it's even more, it's reinforced the intuition that I've always had about that.
So let's readdress this subject. So how much action is the right action in the creation of anything? And we say, sometimes you're in a situation, we're going beyond where you are because you've got your life into a pretty good place, and yet still there is action required of you. And sometimes it's action that you would not necessarily want to do. And so let's talk about how much action is good action. How much should I be acting and how much should I be flowing thought energy? What's the right ratio? And we say, we're not trying to talk you out of action. We're trying to encourage you into only action that feels good. And you say, oh, well, that's all well and good, Abraham. All of us want that. But what do we do today? What do we do today when we have to do, I have to go to a job, we're speaking on behalf of others, I have to go to a job that I don't necessarily want to go to, and I have to clean my house in a way that I don't necessarily want to, and I have to find somebody to mow my lawn or mow it myself when I don't necessarily want to. How much action do I actually do? And we say, if you can find a way to soothe your emotions while you perform this action that you don't want to perform, you will line up the energy, and your necessity to act in that way will become less in this moment. If every action you take that makes you feel like I'd rather not do it, you will talk yourself into alignment with the idea of it. Now, this goes contrary to what a lot of you think, because a lot of people think that if I talk my resistance down about this action that I don't want to do, that's like saying to the universe, bring me more of the stuff I don't want to do. And we say, that's never what's happening. By talking down your resistance about this action that you don't want to do, all that happens is that you turn and go more with the flow, which means universal forces make it less necessary for you to do this thing you don't want to do and line it up for you in a way that is more like the way you want to do it.